Hey YouTube. Whew, rough talking while that microphone is on. I just wanted to update you guys. The wild animal was captured. He was subdued by a sausage biscuit. Max got loose on me. Yes, Candy. I caught Max. He was running loose. He's so little. He's a chihuahua, and he's so little that he can squeeze through the gate beside the where the post is. Hey, Daryl Deemer. Yeah, I managed to wrangle him. A couple of neighbors saw him go in one direction, so I followed him and opened the van door and waved a sausage biscuit at him, and he jumped in the van. So he's now captured again. Wild beast subdued. Sausage biscuit for the win. Yeah, he can't resist those. It's better than pepperonis and everything else. That sausage smell brings them in. I guess I could go ahead and run a live stream. Uh, I just, as soon as I got ready to do my live stream stuff, I heard him barking just before I started, and then all of a sudden it got quiet, and I thought, oh no, and I went out there and I have a bottle set up where he can squeeze through, and of course it was knocked over. He had squeezed through and run out. So I ran in and canceled the live stream, and then went on the hunt for him. Grabbed an extra sausage biscuit and went on the hunt. He's a good little dog, but he just really, really wants to run off. He just thinks running off is the best way to be. I'm not sure if you guys caught it, but Kang Lee had a live stream where he was at his Minnesota club auction. And I'd recommend any of you that have never been to a live auction, local club live auction, I'd recommend that you watch it because it will give you a really good idea of what to expect if you ever do go to a local club auction. Yeah, they did have a lot of stuff. And I've seen auctions that were twice that much stuff too. So you just never know. It's just winter time is when we start uh, drawing inwards because the weather outside is getting bad, and it's known in the fish keeping industry, the pet sales industry, that wintertime is a really strong period of time for hey Susan, welcome to the stream. I caught my dog. He didn't get very far. He was just bothering other dogs at the other end of the neighborhood. But anyway, wintertime is when it gets cold outside here in the northern hemisphere, when this time of year, and people tend to start paying more attention to things like fish tanks and indoor activities. And so the pet industry knows that in the fall that sales will go up. People will be more interested in their fish again. You know, through the summer we've got lots of stuff to do outside. So we spend a lot of time not thinking about our fish and running around on vacations and day hikes and all that sort of thing. But when the winter weather starts hitting, a lot of people are drawn back indoors, and and so fall auctions are always good auctions to go to. Um, I guess it doesn't really matter northern or southern hemisphere because it's fall when it's fall. Um, but fall auctions are always good to go to because people are gearing up for the winter. They're either doing away with some types of fish that they keep, or they're trying to clear their stock. They've been summer tubbing all summer, and yes, yes, Pam, I did find the dog. I managed to catch him before he got very far. I caught him with a sausage biscuit, Pam. I highly recommend, if you're chasing a wild chihuahua, to wave a hot sausage biscuit in his face. They will definitely come to you then. So I caught my, yes. It would probably take 2 sausage biscuits to catch a wild Pam. And they probably have to be pretty high-end sausage biscuits. Pam's discriminating when it comes to her delicacies. Sausage biscuit sounds good. Yee. Well, I highly recommend them. I don't know if you have sausage too, Pam, but I highly recommend sausage biscuits or biscuits. We'll give Rod a hug for us, Susan. Tell him we think about him. So basically, I've got nothing to talk about other than my dog and chasing after him. But pets are a responsibility. I think that sometimes we think of pets as window dressing on our lives. They just kind of fill in some of the empty spots, but pets are a responsibility as well as a joy and a pleasure, and it's our job as pet owners, whether it be fish or cats or dogs or reptiles, or no matter what kind of pet you choose to keep. And I would recommend all kinds of pets to you. Um, even even people with children who have allergies. If you have a child that's allergic to dogs or allergic to cats, if you ask an old school doctor what's the best way to get a child over an allergy, it is to get that kind of animal and keep it. Because and take this with a grain of salt, because there are some people that are deadly allergic to cat dander or dog hair or that kind of thing, and in those cases getting a dog or a cat would not be a good idea. But in cases where it is mild allergies, the best way to solve that issue is to actually get a cat or a dog and keep them and allow that child to develop their natural immunity to that allergen. And once again, this will not always work. Some children have serious allergies that should not be trifled with by going this way. But if it's not a serious allergy, if it's not an allergy that's life-threatening, then I would recommend that you get that animal and keep it, if nothing else, to give your child a chance to develop an immunity so that they do not have to go through life fearing that animal and fearing what could happen to them if they're in a situation where they're stuck around one of those animals. You know, and I am by no means a medical professional. I am by no means someone you should risk life or limb on following my advice. But I think that if you'll talk to allergists, they will tell you that in a lot of cases, that is the best way to handle an allergy like that. That's not life-threatening. You don't want to kill your child making them be less allergic to an animal. But if it's not a life-threatening allergy, if it's just sniffles and runny nose and sneezing or maybe a light rash, then I would suggest, and I would also suggest that you contact a doctor before pursuing this advice, but that you allow that child to go through some small allergic reaction in order to build up their own immunity to that, rather than force them at some point later on in life when they're grown having to be faced with a situation where someone that they have fallen in love with is also in love. Just throw the kid in the cage with a dog. No, Pam, I'm trying to avoid that. I'm trying not to encourage people to kill their kids, trying to get them to adjust to an allergy. But so many times I hear stories of people who have fallen in love with someone and then they have to break it off because that person loves cats or that person loves dogs. It just doesn't make any sense to me why parents, you know, our world has gotten pretty dang PC right now. And you know, there are some allergies that require, you know, strict avoidance. You know, peanut allergies, a lot of these things are life-threatening, and you've got to avoid them. But if, as a parent with a young child, you can nip it in the bud as far as a mild allergy goes, why subject your child to being forced later in life to deal with something in a really bad way when you can, with a small, you know, amount of time and effort, relieve them of that allergy being so terrible? I don't know. I just feel like people need to be more realistic about how they face life's trials and tribulations sometimes. You know, it just doesn't make sense to be so picayune that you force your progeny to really undergo some serious issues much later in life. They fall in love with someone, they go to that person's home, all expecting everything to be great and wonderful, and lo and behold, that person has a cat in the house. And they start breaking out in coughs and sniffles and a terrible rash, and have to leave and have to make a choice whether it's worth it to them to go through that allergy to be with that person, or whether they should just drop that person and avoid that allergy. When, when early in life they could have been subjected to that allergy with a much less terrible outcome and gotten over it to the point where it wouldn't cause them to have to make a life choice based on the allergy in their older age. You know, when you're young, stuff is a lot easier to get over. It's a lot easier to become accustomed to something when you're young than it is when your body gets older and it's set in its ways. And I would strongly recommend that you verify each word I'm spouting, because I'm not 100% positive about this, but I'm pretty dang sure that a parent can relieve a lifetime of a bad allergy by subjecting the child to that allergen when they're young enough to develop chemicals in their body that will help them defend against that allergy. I guess that's enough ranting about cats and dogs. Let's see here. Well, aquatic nests, you're right about that. There are, you know, there are environmental allergies. Um, sometimes it takes a certain amount of time, like like Cedar Mountain elm. When I lived in Dallas, everybody just went around moaning and groaning about Cedar Mountain elm pollen time of the year, and they all just acted like they were dying, like they had Ebola or something. And I never could figure it out. But after I lived in Dallas for about 7 or 8 years, it started affecting me too. And I don't know if that's a case of mass hysteria or if that's a case of some kind of histamines that your body builds up in reaction to it. And after a certain period of time, you begin to experience an allergy that you never had before. And I have to admit, it was pretty dang miserable. I thought I had the flu the first time it hit me. And then I began to realize what was going on, that I was suddenly having an allergic reaction to Cedar Mountain elm. You know, there's here in Louisville, there's a thing they call the creeping crud, and it's taken my wife and I about, oh, I don't know, 14 years of living here, and now the creeping crud gets us too. So there are certain allergic reactions that come on later in life and that come on in environmental ways too. Oh. Oh. Hey, Max. 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 He's not going to come to me. So what's up with you guys today? Max. Max. Office Max. He's all the way in the living room. He was barking at dogs out the front window. um, this chasing a dog before live stream just kind of blew me out of the water as far as kinds of things I was thinking about before the stream as to what I wanted to talk about. It's the more and more videos that you do as a YouTuber, the more and more live streams that you do, you begin to discover that you're repeating yourself over and over again, saying the same things. And while there are a lot of kinds of things that help learning by constant repetition over and over again, it gets kind of old as a content provider to be continuously repeating the same thing. Case in point, I've been using these pictures from Peru, some good and some not so good, some pretty bad, for about a year now, and I feel like I need to change them. I feel like I'm starting to see the same pictures come up on a thumbnail, but I just don't really have anything that I can think of to replace it with. I guess I need to start doing more videos of my tanks and getting you guys some decent videos to run as a background. I've had a lot of trouble with my camera lately. I basically I was trying to do a video and I left the camera out on my camera stand, my tripod, for about 2 weeks, sitting there in the bedroom that has 4 tanks in it now, and the humidity from the room got to my camera, and so I tried to use it, and I filmed the video, and it came out really badly. The camera itself was not adjusting to the light properly, so and that's one of the last videos of mine that you will see. So I decided that I would wrap it in a bag with some desiccant, you know, the kinds of things that come in packages that draw moisture out of the air. And the last time I got it out and checked on it, it was doing a lot better, but I'm still not sure that I'm going to get decent video quality out of it. So my camera has kind of been on hiatus due to my not realizing that the humidity level in my room was enough to cause it to have issues. So I do need to start doing more video work again. I've been on a string here where I basically just haven't done any videos. And like I said, the video that I tried to do, it just really didn't work. Yes, the do not eat packets. Yeah, well, that's a lesson for you YouTubers that are willing to go out and spend a lot of money on a camera. And a lot of money is relative. It was a lot of money for me. I only spent like $400 and got a couple of lenses too, but I bought the camera used. And and it's a dinky Nikon. It's a D3500, and it's not the best camera, but for the money, I felt like it offered me one, an upgrade from my InstaShoot that I was using when I first started filming, because it's a lot better video, and two, of all the cameras that I could buy that were in the range that I felt like I could afford, that my wife wouldn't divorce me over. That was the one that I felt like, well, the newest and the latest cameras out right now are in the $3,000 to $5,000 range. So $400 is not a lot, even on a used camera. You can get a decent camera. Hey, Corona Ken, welcome to the stream, man. I'm basically, I basically had to go chase one of my dogs down. He got out the fence and was running loose, so I had to go run him down right when I was getting ready to start my live stream. So this is basically kind of a update to let people know that I did catch him. Max is once again a captive beast. And I would show you video proof, but he's busy resting on his couch in the living room, and he's not interested in coming in here. He's had his sausage biscuit already. He doesn't care anymore till it comes feeding time again. Then he'll be interested. Yeah, my skills as a cameraman, a camera person, leave an awful lot to be desired. I keep studying the subject. I keep trying to immerse myself in it. And basically all that's done is given me gear lust. And that's one of the things you got to avoid as a newbie getting into the photography hobby, is gear lust. It is so easy to get sucked into that latest and greatest, and oh, you got to have this, and oh, you got to have that. It's just really, I mean, once I knew that I was going to Peru, I wanted to try to get as much camera gear together as I could before I went, so that I wouldn't feel like I was in a situation where I literally couldn't take pictures I wanted to take because I did not have the gear with me to take them. And I tried my best and worked as hard as I could to try to get used to the camera and to recognize the kinds of adjustments that I needed to make to get a decent picture. And then stuff like us riding around in a van a lot of the time happened, and I had no clue how to take pictures in a moving vehicle without getting blur. You know, I didn't understand how to adjust the shutter speed properly to keep me from getting so much blur. And the thing about all this camera equipment knowledge is that you not only have to have a good idea of what's going to be optimal, you have to be ready to adjust on the fly. And that's something that takes a lot of experience, or at least in my sad little case, it takes a lot of skill to actually be able to instantly know that you need to adjust the shutter speed down to a certain point, and because of that, the adjustments that you need to make on the other settings that are possible, you need to understand all that stuff instinctively and be familiar enough with your camera to where you can do that on the fly. You know, like, so I got my shutter speed down quick enough in the van to get pictures without being blurred. because we're moving at 50 miles an hour. And then we get out at a location, and suddenly I'm faced with a hummingbird on a bloom in the jungle. And I whip my camera up, but unfortunately, I'm still at the settings I was using in the van moving, and before I can adjust them and pull off the shot, the hummingbird is no longer on the bloom anymore. And what you as the viewer are left with is a picture of a red flower that shortly before had a very large brown Amazon hummingbird hovering over it. So at some point in this pictures, the pictures in this behind this video, you will see a large red flower center of the field. And what's missing is that hummingbird, because I was too dang slow to whip that camera up to my face and set the adjustments right quick enough. And basically all I did was whip it up to my face and set it to automatic. And that's how long it took for that hummingbird to fly off. So you got to be quick in the wild to catch something on footage, or catch something in a snapshot, you know, and basically what the real camera gurus tell you is I always do, Candy. That picture is burned forever in my mind of me missing the shot and chimping and trying to see if I got the hummingbird, and I didn't. It was gone. Hummingbirds are quick, but that hummingbird was so big that it really surprised me. I thought, oh my gosh, is that a hummingbird? And that's about how long it took for me to not get the shot. So cameras are something that I have not really wrapped my head around. I keep trying to rub shoulders with real photographers because I feel like maybe some of that will rub off on me, but so far it hasn't really. The few interactions I've had with real photographers, I mean, I learned a lot just watching Dean about how Dean went about taking photographs when we were together in Peru. Pam has many photos of logs 2 seconds after a deer jumped over it. I could publish a book. Yeah, that's pretty much the way it is, guys. When you're in the wild, it waits for no man. Those wild things are gonna take off. The only problem with publishing that book, Pam, is the only people that would get it would be other photographers. I guess you could call it Deer in Motion, and then everybody would understand. I tried. I tried my best when I was in Peru. My wife wanted lots of plant photos, so that's why you get so many pictures that I took. And there's Dean photographing the orchid, and me trying to figure out how to photograph the orchid like Dean was photographing the orchid. I did have a lot of fun on that trip with the camera. I feel like I got to know my camera a lot better. I got to understand my camera a lot better. The truth is, it's not the equipment. that makes a difference. It's the photographer that makes the difference. So whether you're taking pictures, 2 seconds too late photography book, yep. So whether you're taking pictures um, with $100 camera or a $20,000 camera, that's not what's going to make the difference. What's going to make the difference is your skill as a photographer. And even skill is not the end game for photography, because the end game for photography is not taking a good photo, it's making a piece of art. It's telling a story with your photo. It's taking a photo that is so engaging or so Fishery Fever says he bought an expensive 4K camera once and returned it the next day because his phone took better shots. Well, there's a lot of truth in that these days. I don't think Corey even carries a camera anymore. I think basically all he does is carry a couple of phones and just goes from one phone to the other, because there are a lot of megapixels in some of these camera phones these days. Um, I, I, one of the things that drove me towards getting a camera is the idea that I could take close-up photographs of my fish. I wear glasses. I'm in my 60s. My vision has gotten so bad that I really have to work to try to do the studying of my fish that I used to be able to do in a half-darkened room, with poor lighting over the tank. I used to be able to see an ick spot. Yes, the 60s. Welcome to the stream, 44 Mad Guy. It's really difficult for me to diagnose diseases anymore because I can't really see them. Hey, Crystals, Pets, and Plants, welcome to the stream. The stream that almost didn't happen because I was chasing Max. I can't really see well enough anymore, and that drove me to the idea of high resolution, very close photography, so that I could really see the things that I used to see no problem. I've worn glasses most of my life, but I used to be able to see pretty clearly. But now I think it's presbyopia that I have, that slowly breaks down your eye's ability to focus, and it's gotten to the point now where I need a magnifying glass to even tell what malady may be affecting my fish. And so I hit on the idea that, here I was starting to do YouTube videos. Why not buy a fancy newfangled camera and get a bunch of very close zoom lenses so that I could get really up close and personal to my fish, and I could tell if they had Calaminaris worms, or if they were starting to get real ick, or if they were starting to get stress ick, or if they actually had Calaminaris or velvet. These are things that your eyes can tell you. Your observation of a fish will tell you when that fish is not feeling right, when something is going wrong with that fish. And so eyesight is critical in being able to early catch what's going on. You know, knowledge is critical because you need to know what to look for, and you need experience of having seen it before, what it actually looks like in real time in life, and instead of a photograph. But I thought that I would suddenly be having all these large zoomable pictures where I could zoom right in on the tiniest dot on my fish and discover what it is. Well, I'm here to tell you it's not quite that easy. It's difficult in an utterly different way. Instead of sitting there opening and closing and squinting and cleaning your glasses and getting brighter and brighter lights to try to catch that fish setting still in that bright spotlight and squint and focus closely enough to see what's actually going on. Now you are being forced to create so much light for a photograph to be really clear. You know, outside in the daytime, it's really easy to have enough light, but inside of a fish tank, even in a well-lit environment, it takes an extraordinary amount of light, and usually the problems that you're having with taking a really clear, gorgeous, beautiful photo are lights. And so a lot of people that are really good photographers will steer you away from studying cameras and lenses and gear sniffing. What they will steer you towards is lights. And a lot of people that are really in the know about photography will tell you if you go to a big photography convention that if you want to figure out who the really good people are that are there, go in the area where lights are being sold or lights are being demonstrated. And that your real photographers will go to the light area before they will go to the lens area or the camera area. So, you know, if there's any one kind of gear that you should really be interested in as a new photographer, it is lighting. Because it just makes an utter difference in how clear and how well defined and how color correct your pictures are by having that bright light source at a proper angle to the photo subject you are trying to cover. So besides YouTube, that's what got me into the idea of getting cameras and lenses, was that I needed it to help me study my fish more closely. And that in itself has turned into a whole new ball of wax, a new area of understanding. Welcome to the stream, Michael Thornley Wildlife Foundation. That name rings a bell. I'm not sure why, but for some reason that name rings a bell to me. But welcome to the stream anyway. I I highly suggest that anyone that's interested in YouTubing study photography, study cameras, study lighting. You know, you can do really great work with phones these days. And, you know, far be it from me to tell you that you need to go spend $3,000 on a camera body and $12,000 on lenses. But when you can spend $700 on a camera phone camera. Fish Room Fever says indirect lighting is great for indoor filming. Yeah, your light boxes, your reflections, your you know, cameras have a shoe on them, and you can get a Godux light and put it on that shoe and shoot and have a lot of light on your subject, but it's straight on light. It's light coming from directly above the thought. Maybe so, Michael. Nothing wrong with being a legend in your own mind. And welcome to spring for you guys down under. We're dragging our butts into winter up here in the northern hemisphere. What a lot of my friends from down under call up under. That the planet is actually Australia on top and all the rest of the continents on the bottom. But those of us here in up under are heading for winter. We're in fall heading for winter, and you guys are done with winter and spring headed into summer. But I happen to know from a lot of my friends down there that it gets pretty dang hot in Australia in the summertime. So get ready. I really, really, really have always thought that the way Australia, as in, quote, quote, the powers that be, handle fish down there, it is extremely difficult living in Australia to get wild-caught fish from around the world. They will not let fish in. I just really have never understood that. What, Joel? Joel's here to correct me on my mistakes. What's this about down under? Yeehaw! Yeah, I just have never understood that. I frequent a lot of pleco boards, and the guys down under are just ranting and raving about how they can't get anything. The only way they can get it is for somebody basically to smuggle it in and then raise a bunch of fry, and then it's okay for those fry to be sold or to be spread around the hobby, you know. And to me that just, you know, I'm sure it, right, right, I understand that. No shortage of rainbows. Right on. Um, I can recognize that, and we face the same thing here in the United States. It's just that most of the United States gets cold enough to kill many of those restricted species, but we can't buy piranha or snakeheads or a lot of those things. Yeah, and that's highly understandable, Michael, that there have been non-native species released in the past that have basically wiped out a lot of Australia's native species because they outcompete them, they outbreed them, and we're facing the same thing here in the United States. But I think maybe here in the U.S., the toothpaste has pretty much been squeezed out of the tube already, and there's not much way to put it back in. So maybe the heat kills the up-unders. Yeah, I can imagine that too. It's amazing that so many rainbows are able to adjust to that. I I've run into that with one of the fish that I brought back from Peru. Yeah, it probably does, 44 Mag Guy, because Wisconsin winters are so cold that if you released a piranha into a local waterway, unless it could find an area that was heated, like maybe around a dam where the water was going through turbines and picking up a lot of heat and then dumping that out on the backside, then maybe a fish could stay alive through the winter. But mostly they die because of how cold the water gets. Yes, I had piranha when I was in Tennessee too. But it gets pretty darn cold in Knoxville. Plus, there's a lot of mountain streams there. I mean, there's a lot of Michael says, but they do have colder areas in Australia. Nothing like you guys, though. I lived in Delaware for a year and experienced some of the cold and snow. Yeah, it gets bitter cold. Delaware's a good example of just how cold the U.S. can get. I went to UT for most of my college education, three years at UT. Go Vols! My Corona Kid says, unlike New Jersey where everything is legal unless you get caught. My father was in the space program. He was a gantry engineer. He was a gantry engineer for the space program. And when the space program wound down in the 80s, people that had worked for him brought him into TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority. And so he moved to Knoxville. And I was of college age at the time when he moved there. I was not living with him. The Blizzard of Oz. Well, now there's a name to remember. They tell you, snowbird, go back home so you can take all his snow with you, back with you. I was not living with my father at that time when I was about college age. My father was always a my way or the highway kind of person. And when I really decided to go ahead and settle down and try to go to school, I knew I couldn't afford to do it on my own, or at least I thought I couldn't afford to do it on my own. So we uh, we came to a peace agreement and set up a DMZ in our house and in his house, and I moved back in for I think I lasted almost a year and a half, and started to school at UT. Um, that didn't last very long. He was too interested in controlling my every move, and I was far too rebellious to be controlled. And I was going to do what the hell I wanted, and he was not going to put up with me doing what the hell I wanted. So I ended up finishing most of my schooling, living on my own, outside of my father's purview. But I lived in some houses we needed DMZ. We definitely needed a DMZ in my house when I was around, because to say that I was a handful would be cutting it way short. I was a royal pain in the ass as a child. And excuse my French, but I think in this case it's well deserved. I would have hated, no, demilitarized zone. That's a Vietnam reference. DMZ. No fighting allowed in this zone. So anyway, I lived in Knoxburg, Knox Patch, for about 9 years. And it is one of my favorite cities in the United States to live in. Knoxville has some of the most incredible vistas and nature around it that you'll find anywhere in the world, and I got to spend lots of time up around Kate's Cove and Rainbow Waterfall. I had the good fortune of meeting a good friend who was studying to be a ranger and had lived there his whole life and knew the mountains like the back of his hand, or as we called them, the Tains. Time to go to the Tains. And he would come by my house when he knew I wasn't doing anything else, and he would say, "Let's go to the Tains, Dwayne." And we would drive up on some of the most god-awful back roads you've ever heard of up in the mountains around Knoxville, and pull off in a ditch where I would say, "Joe, how are we going to get this car out of the ditch when we get back after hiking all day?" And he would say, "Well, I can't leave it on the road because somebody will hit it and we won't have a way home when we get back." So we would just take off on little tiny culverts beside the road, and he would take me to some of the most incredible places that I've ever seen. Sometimes it would take half a day to hike up to them. I've been in places where the piney squirrels would come right up to you and take food out of your hand. If you had a piece of bread or a cracker in your lunch that you were toting with you, they were so unafraid of humans that they would literally come and take food out of your hands. I've sat on Bluff Mountain and looked down into the valley for hours and hours and hours on end. Joe taught me mountains more than anyone that I've ever known before, and Puppy shopping. Yeah, well, that's part of the reason why this live stream is so late, is because I was puppy shopping for my runaway Chihuahua. This right when my live stream was supposed to start, I realized that he had gotten away. So I was going to cancel my live stream, and then I thought, well, I better get on and let people know that that I did manage to catch him. Max is once more a captive beast. He won't come in here. He's sleeping on the couch in the living room, so I can't show you video proof unless I go get him and drag him in here. Been shopping for a poodle. Poodles are some of their personalities are really wiry. You know, they're really an amped up dog, some of them, and yet I've known full-sized poodles that were just as laid back as a dog could be. So poodles are make pretty, and I found one, but my dad has to give me $600. Ouch. That's an expensive pedigree dog. 7 currently. Woohoo. That's a lot of poodles. That's a lot of poodle doodle. That's one of the cuss words that my mom used to use, was poodle doodle. I had many other words. Yeah, Ken, thanks for dropping in, man. I'm about to close this down myself. I've surprised myself actually talking for an hour because, yeah, 44 Mad Guy brings up a great point. That shelters have lots of dogs that need families, and it's a lot cheaper to go get one. Both of our dogs are shelter dogs, and that's basically what we do now. We don't try to buy pedigreed animals anymore, and supporting our local pet shelters. There's just so many dogs that need adoption and so many cats that need adoption that I would really recommend getting one from your shelter too. And that's a great point to bring up. That's like supporting your local fish store. A blue Merle Phantom. Wow. That's a highly bred dog. And I can understand the price too. And $600 might buy 2 more tanks. I think 600 US would buy you 3 tanks, Michael. Yeah. Yep, and if you go to the shelter, you're going to get spayed animals, and as they rightly should be. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap this up. I appreciate everybody dropping in on my unannounced re-announcement of my live stream being canceled because Max the Chihuahua got away. He is recaptured, and all is right with the world as far as the Kitchel family goes. All right, guys, I'm going to shut it down. Thanks for helping me get through another live stream. Good luck with your fish. Go watch everybody's videos, and have a good rest of your weekend.